Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley, and I am a machine learning program manager at Google.
And I'm Lawrence, and I'm a machine learning developer advocate at Google.
And we are both people of AI.
So join us as we meet some of the most interesting people in the field of machine learning and artificial intelligence.
You will meet leaders, practitioners, amateurs in the field of AI and ML, and how they ended up where they are today, what they have learned along the way, and their outlook on the future.
Sounds exciting. Shall we do it?
Let's jump right in. This podcast is sponsored by Google. Any remarks made by the speakers are their own and are not endorsed by Google. We are really excited to welcome Catherine Nelson to our show. Welcome, Catherine. Catherine is a data scientist and author of the upcoming O'Reilly book, Software Engineering for Data Scientists. She is a principal data scientist at SAP Concur, where she explores innovative ways to deliver production machine learning applications which improve a business traveler's experience. Her key focus areas range from ML explainability and model analysis to privacy-preserving ML. She's also a co-author of the O'Reilly publication, Building Machine Learning Pipelines. And she is an organizer for Seattle PyLadies, supporting women who code in Python. In her previous career as a geophysicist, she studied ancient volcanoes and explored for oil in Greenland. Catherine has a PhD in geophysics from Durham University and a Master's of Earth Sciences from Oxford University. Welcome to the People of AI podcast, Catherine. We're so happy that you're here.
Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you. And I think you and Lawrence were on a YouTube video together. Is that right?
Yeah, we did, right? Way back.
Yes, that's a couple of years ago, and when we were still just getting started with all these remote recordings.
I know, isn't that great? That's when you did the first book, right? The Pipelines book. You know,
yeah, that's correct.
How did that work out? How's that going?
It's been really good. It was really well received. We were really happy with that. It's great to be able to work with the TensorFlow team and to bring the latest in production machine learning pipelines to a wider audience. That was really fun.
And you've got a second one coming out too, which is cool.
Yes. Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. The first couple of chapters just went live on the O'Reilly website just before Christmas, and I'm in the middle of writing it, really enjoying the writing process.
Oh, good for you. Wow. So can you tell us what it's all about? Give us a sneak preview of the content.
This is the book that I wish I had been able to read 5 years ago. It's software engineering for data scientists, and it's basically making software engineering concepts accessible to people coming from a data science background. So like you're a junior data scientist, you might have just done a boot camp or something like that. You're faced with your first job and you're like, what even is an API? How do I start writing code that touches a big production system? And the vast majority of the books available for this at the moment, the examples are from web development, the examples are in Java, and I don't think there's really anything that approaches it from the point of view of a data scientist. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Interesting. Wow.
They say the best books are the ones that you write because you wish you had read them. So I think that sounds really exciting. And I'd actually like to take this opportunity to segue into, you were saying 5 years ago, it's the book you wish you had read. I'd like for you to take us back even further and tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got started. Take us far back as early as you like, as early as you're comfortable with.
Absolutely. So I'm originally British, but I've lived in the States for 8 years now. And data science is my second career. My background is in geology and geophysics. I did a PhD in that, wandering around looking at ancient lava flows.
How did you get into that, into studying geophysics? Like, was there, you're like, oh, I love exploring the garden, or I love rock climbing, or how did you get into that?
So as a child, I'd always enjoyed looking at the landscape and wondering why it looked like it did. So I'd be like, why is there a hill here or a valley here? Why do things look like they do? It was that curiosity that led me to study geology and then through to geophysics and volcanology, just because a lot of it, what took me in that direction was I wanted to do something that had a very direct application that was going to be very useful to people. And volcanology is a subject where there's still, we don't know when the next volcano is going to erupt. There's a lot of really interesting research around that. After that, the next opportunity I got was to work for an oil company for a few years, which led to some really cool travel opportunities, including a trip to Greenland to go and check out the rocks there.
Wow.
As time went on, I found that it wasn't something that really fitted with my personal ethics. This was over 10 years ago, and I've definitely changed my opinion around whether that's something I wanted to do or not.
And you've changed careers and gone into machine learning.
Yes.
So I'd love to see how you pivoted. Rocks to machines.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not too long after moving to Seattle. I'd been looking for a job in geology and I wasn't finding anything. It's something that's super interesting, but there's not always a ton of opportunities available. And I decided that I had to find something where there were more jobs available. This was 2014, 2015. And LinkedIn started spamming me with data science jobs. And eventually I clicked on one and I was like, this data science thing sounds kind of interesting.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder how they made the connection, like from data science to like geoscience. Is it just on the word science? And
I'm
started
pretty certain
doing
they
it?
just had a keyword model that included science.
Right. Wow. So like it's less a bug now and more a feature that it helps
Yes.
like, a scientist like yourself to cross over. That's
Yeah,
really cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, were there any kind of new skills and things that you had to skill up on, or had you been doing like Python and data sciencey stuff in the oil industry?
There was a whole bunch that I needed to learn. I had some Python skills, but not enough. I spent a bunch of time working on my Python programming. I took the original Andrew Ng's original Coursera course to learn machine learning, which
everybody's done.
because it's great.
It is really good. Yes.
Yeah. At that time, it was just the perfect introduction.
Right.
But what really got me from studying and being interested to actually being able to get a job in data science was working on projects outside the courses, just taking those skills and applying them to problems that I was interested in. And the thing that ended up getting me my first data science job was a personal project that I did that used TensorFlow. And this was late 2015, early 2016. So
wow, really at the beginning.
Yes.
Right.
And it was an image rating project where I tried to assign ratings for how good a different photo was.
Okay.
But having those skills using TensorFlow at that point was actually a pretty good.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. That set me apart from a lot of the people who were applying for junior data science jobs at that point.
So you're telling me you were using TensorFlow in 2015, 2016, and you're still talking to us. Because it has changed a lot since then to make it a lot easier to use.
So much more useful. Yeah. The documentation to get you started has always been great.
Oh, I'll tell the docs team. They'll be so happy to hear that. Wow. So like, I mean, it must have been quite a process to try and like build not so much an image classification, almost an image sentiment type thing.
Yes.
For quality of image. Is that the idea?
Yep. I managed to scrape a labeled data set off the internet.
I see.
So yeah, it was actually from a rock climbing website because that's one of the things I do in my spare time.
Surprise, surprise.
Yes.
Wow. What happened next?
The next thing that happened was that I was looking to get my first job in data science, and I went out and tried to figure out how to network, how to meet more people. And Seattle PyLadies was super helpful for that. So that's an organization that encourages more women to write code in Python. They have meetups. I'm now one of the organizers for that. And I happened to meet someone there and strike up a conversation and mention this project I was working on in my spare time. And she said, hey, we've got some opportunities coming up. You should apply. And that got me my initial job where I am right now at SAP Concur.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
I'm picturing you as, as someone who loves nature and who's outdoors, and then you go into being a geophysicist and interacting with nature, and now being into machine learning and dealing with huge amounts of data and moving forward with that. I would love to know, in hindsight, it's always easier to be like, oh yeah, all of these pieces fit together to allow me to be where I am here. But was there a point when, do you feel like you were destined for machine learning and AI, or did you sort of fall into it, or was it planned? Or I'd love to know more sort of like how that journey mapped out for you.
It has not been planned at all. It's been a series of fortunate events. And I have said yes to the opportunities that have come along. The ones that sound interesting, the ones that sound like they will give me more options in the future. I've just been able to say, that sounds good, I'll give it a try. And that's how I've ended up here.
Wow.
Was there ever a moment where you were intimidated by the space? I think sometimes AI and machine learning can be intimidating to a lot of developers who are like, that sounds so cool, but do I need to get a PhD, or do I need to, have years of experience? Is there a time where you struggled with could I even go into this field? Or were you slowly, gradually, through opportunities of saying yes, sort of brought into the field?
There was definitely a time when I was really struggling, and that was trying to get my first data science job. And I went through a bunch of interviews, and each company was looking for something different. So at that point, I was like, there's just so much to learn. How can I learn all this? And I really took that on myself as being needing to know everything about everything. But now with a bit more hindsight, I'm like, no, I need to pick the things that work for me, that I'm interested in, and then find a place to do that that's actually the right fit. And that's really hard to do when you're just starting and there's just this overwhelming number of options just within machine learning and AI. But if you gradually work through finding something that's a fit between what you've done up to that point, what you're interested in, and what the company is looking for, that seems to be the way to do it.
Yeah, great advice.
There's got to be an intersection between what there's demand for and what you want to do. So you can't go off and do something that's completely niche that you happen to be super into and has no applicable skills that anyone's going to pay you money to do. Because one thing that I've ended up doing with the career change that I've done is that I actually don't get everything out of the job I do. So I still very much enjoy being out in nature and exploring wild places. And that used to be something I did as part of my job. But now I make sure that's still part of my life. But I don't always get everything from my job.
I'd love to hear more about that balance, because I know that across the field, there are some that are really passionate about their work and they sort of put everything into it. But the reality is that there are some folks in the profession who love what they do, but as you said, doesn't always match or fulfill every other interest that they have. And it's another thing I personally struggle with is I see folks who are totally in it and I'm like, oh, I love what I'm doing, but I also love this. And how can I find a way to either incorporate it or find it separate? So I'd love to hear how you balance that, whether you find ways to incorporate it in your job or you just become really good at time management and you separate them and both sort of feed each other on their own. And Lawrence, I don't think we've talked about this either. So
yeah,
you're next.
Oh, I want to hear Catherine.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is always a struggle because I have so many things that I'm interested in. How do I find the time to do them all? But I think that the thing that's been key for me is just being super clear about what my priorities and taking the time to really think about what is it that I want? Where do I want to go? How do I want to spend my time? I've got so many hours in the day. Do I want to spend those writing my book or outside in nature? And just trying to be aware of what that balance is looking like rather than just let things happen and do what you see the people doing around you.
And I can imagine that's challenging, especially because of the job that you have as well. So I think that sounds like a great lesson and to take away from. Thanks for that answer.
Yeah, I think I'm quite similar to Catherine in that way. And I think a lot of it is to really be deliberate about how you spend your time and to be conscientious, because we all have limited hours in the day and we all have limited minutes in the hour and that kind of thing. And it's, You can work too much, you can play too much, and it's, just try to be very conscientious about how I'm spending my time, the decisions that I'm making, and the things that I want to do. Like, what's the impact of those things going to be? What is the impact on me? What's the impact on my family? What's the impact on people around me? That kind of thing. That, sometimes it's okay to put up your feet, eat some potato chips and watch TV. And sometimes it's okay to kind of spend a couple of hours bettering myself to learn something new. And it's, just, understanding the impact of each of these and kind of factoring that in as I'm deciding how to spend my time is good.
Well, so I'd like to switch gears again a little bit. You've had this really extraordinary journey, and you've been in the data scientist field, also in the research field, and into the production field where you're working at SAP and Concur on really making tools that are usable for customers and bringing in the technology and productionizing it. What's next for you? What's the next horizon?
That's a great question. And I wish I could say, oh yeah, I have this grand plan and I know what I'm going to be doing 5 years from now. And the truth is I have no idea. I'm going to be open to options and see what comes, really. Obviously, I still have another 10 or so chapters of my new book to write. We're doing some really fun stuff at Concur at the moment where I have a project which I'm lucky enough to be able to take that all the way from the initial idea to actually putting that into production and showing that to customers. So that's a ton of fun.
Each of these areas can be an old career path and on its own, right? Data scientist, research, product manager. You've acquired all of these skills together. Are you able to bring those skills into what you do and sort of combine them?
I definitely haven't found any one situation where I'm using all the skills that I've picked up. And honestly, I think that's been slightly a deliberate choice because I actually really enjoy not knowing what I'm doing and being in a place where there's a ton to learn. So I deliberately put myself into these positions where I don't know if I can do it. There's a lot of challenge available there. And that's what happened with the first book that I co-authored. When I said yes to that, I had no idea whether I could do it or not.
Wow.
I admire so much that you've actually written one book and now you're writing another one. But is there an internal confidence that pushed you forward? Or is there let's just kind of wait and see, or I'll just take it a step at a time?
It's absolutely the step at a time. If you think about the whole book as one, it is enormously intimidating and you never get started. But if you think about it, can I write this sentence? Can I write this paragraph? Can I write this page? And then you just start with that one sentence. Then that prompts the next one. And then suddenly you have a paragraph. And then you just keep building it up step by step.
Now, you enjoy outdoorsy things like rock climbing, right?
I do. And the same thing absolutely applies in rock climbing. If you think about the whole scale of the entire mountain, you never get started. But you just got to break it down so that you're just reaching for the next hold, taking the next step. And once you've done that, you can do the next one.
I do want to dive in on something that you mentioned that you work on, and I think it's a really important one, and that's model interpretability. So regardless of whether a model's small, medium, or large, one great way of making sure it's not used for ill is to be able to interpret what it does and how it does it. And, and if it does things wrong, it helps you fix it. But I'm curious, what your feedback and your thoughts in that area.
I absolutely agree. I think that's huge, and it's something that's seen a ton of research recently, and something there's still a lot to be done. One thing I was looking at just the other day is we do a lot of natural language processing, and I'm just looking into the language interpretability tool that Google's produced, and trying to get that working on our models, because not only is it going to tell our users more about why that prediction has been made, it's also great but actually getting those explanations to the users is often the hard part as well, because you need to close the loop with the product design as well. It needs to be more than just the machine learning experts getting involved here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like you said, getting into people's hands so they can understand how the models are making decisions to reduce their bill or whatever it is, that kind of thing is always going to be a very powerful tool.
And then listening to feedback from the users as well, like, hey, I understand this, hey, I don't understand this, and being able to close that loop and get the feedback from the user to change the model. That's the hard part.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm seeing another theme here, which is really bridging that gap of understanding and accessibility between folks explaining things, right? Explaining how things work, giving access to folks who didn't have information prior to allow them to do new things and to know how to do those things. Is that sort of a big theme as well in your life, would you say?
Yeah, kind of sitting in these spaces between different fields and trying to get people on the same page and being able to talk to each other. That's something I very much enjoy.
It sounds like you're very good at it as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think one of the things that I find particularly interesting, having spent some time in this field, is just the broad diversity of people who are entering the field. I don't just mean their personal diversity, I also mean their background, right, where they've come from. And it's like, you're the first volcanologist that I've spoken to in machine learning. I've spoken with people from all walks of life. And one of the things I'm really interested in is like, any aspects of your previous life or the way you did work previously that has been brought into this field, help you be a better practitioner in the field, but also help the people around you appreciate or understand the field that they do a little bit more. I mean, you touched on one earlier on, like in your old life, you could spend days or weeks collecting a single sample, and now you have millions of samples. And, maybe we can sometimes overestimate the value of that, and having you come into the field and teach us about that, I think is really useful. And are there any other areas maybe that you think that part of your previous life has really, really enhanced the gene pool, as it were, of practitioners?
I would say that one other thing that's been useful is being able to trace back from the data that I see in front of me to asking the questions of where that came from in the first place. So what are the assumptions that went into the initial data collection? Does that affect the reliability of the results? Really digging deep into where that data's come from, because obviously data is what everything's built on. That's the base of this whole house of cards that we build. And if that data's not what you think it's going to be, then nothing that comes out the other end is going to be what you expect it to be either.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. You are what you eat, right? But yeah,
Yes.
but that's a really good point. Like, I mean, I never really thought about it that way, because for me, the starting point is data, and I assume the data is good and that kind of thing. But with all of the rigor that you had to put from your past life into gathering that data, you realize that maybe the data needs to be audited a lot more. It's like, that's really cool.
We are nearing the end of our time together. Unless, Lawrence, you have any other last questions?
I want you to ask my favorite question. You know the one.
Yes. Catherine, what is your favorite AI movie?
Can I cheat and pick a book instead?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, of course.
I'm going to pick Ian M. Banks' Culture novels, which are a fantastic series of sci-fi books with benevolent AIs who are vastly more intelligent than humans, but still have a lot of really human problems.
So why is it your favorite?
Both the quality of the writing and it's a very utopian vision of what human society could be. No one has health problems. Everything is taken care of. Everyone has all the resources they need. And yet these books explore all these things that can still go wrong and all these very human stories that still happen.
Catherine, it was such a pleasure to have you. We are honored that you took the time to get to talk to us and share your story and your experience with us and your insights. An absolute delight. Thank you so much for being on the People of AI show with us.
Thank you for having me. I've had a lot of fun.
Thanks, Catherine, and we'll look forward to your next book.
Thank you.